Hello, Deb. I can see you. Oh,
Can you hear me?
yes, ma'am, I can
And you can see me?
see and hear you.
Great.
And we are live streaming and just waiting for a few more folks. Well, we'll give it another moment here. I don't see Chair Bean yet, and I don't actually see we should have most of our TEA members had responded that they would be available, so hopefully everyone will be hopping on. Or Deb and Ray, you may need to just take charge of the goals.
There you go. No problem, right, Ray?
I'll let Deb do that.
That'll get you in real trouble, I
I
think.
know.
All right. Well, and as soon as I said that, so I believe Chair Rice is on, and I see Cindy.
Cindy's on too?
Okay,
Yes, I am.
All
Hi,
right.
Ray.
Hello.
terrific. All right. And I see folks from the community and technical colleges as well. Uh, I see it's 3 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and try to get us started here. Chair Bean indicated that he was in a meeting and it just might accidentally run a little long. So if it works for the committee, I would recommend that we wait to approve the minutes until he can be with us. And then we can just go ahead and start talking about the discussion agenda, if that works for you guys.
Sounds good.
Excellent.
Yes.
So our agenda for today is actually to work on developing a recommendation for the full TEA to entertain for those 2025-26 goals. Uh, on September 24th, we sent the current board goals as well as that status report that we did last spring on the goals that we had set last year. And in your packet, then we've also provided some of those same uh, pieces of information and resources to help guide that discussion. But before we get into any of that, I would just like to ask if you if you all don't mind, does any of the TEA members right now have a goal initially or goals to recommend?
So, Sharman, as you know, we've been working updating the new clusters and pathways. And after meeting with, and thank you, meeting with you and Vera and Advanced CTE, we do have a transition plan. And some of those do involve KBOR. I could share some of those if that's acceptable.
Sure.
I will get them. I can share with them. I mean, a lot of them are, they gave us recommendations of different SIP codes to possibly consider based upon the new alignment. And this year we will be reviewing business management. We'll be looking at a gap area that includes supply chain and logistics. There's several high skill, high demand, high wage occupations in logistics that have appeared that we don't have coursework for,
Mhm.
and then advanced manufacturing. So, but we have some other areas in transition plan that we would like to work with you to think about aligning with your SIP codes and some of those other areas.
Natalie, what are you interested in with, or what you mentioned advanced manufacturing. What is it that you're needing or looking for with that?
So it has been our history, our practice to review our clusters every 5 years. So manufacturing is up for review.
Okay.
However, in the model has been rearranged somewhat, so you'll find that we don't have an engineering cluster like we have in the past, that some of those engineering courses and automation are with advanced manufacturing. And they just wanted us to look at SIP codes and made sure. So, I mean, a general goal would be to work with us to make sure our SIP codes align with yours so students have opportunity for dual credit, and that the SIP codes we're choosing are in alignment with the new Department of Labor just released their information. There might be gap areas such as planning and logistics, but it's just time to look at manufacturing.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
But we have, I mean, I could share a lot of SIP code numbers with you that they said these are also SIP codes that might, and we're just making sure we're in alignment and have chosen the correct ones.
So Natalie, if I may, I think that sounds like something that it would benefit, if we wanted to talk about that with the full TEA, if you could kind of put together
Yeah, we have a real,
kind of a
very
talking
detailed
point.
plan. Very detailed. I probably want to condense it just a little, but we have a plan through summer of 2028. So
Natalie, can we put you on the agenda for the full TEA to share that before we get into the discussion about developing goals?
that would be great. I think I'm scheduled to present on the 25th, just what's new. And of course, the new models, what's new.
Okay.
And then one of our goal areas is to work with the Board of Regents in aligning SIP codes that align with the new model.
Okay.
Great. So more to come on that. Anybody else have a goal to put forth before we start talking about some of the other information we have there?
Well, I don't know how it ties into exactly our, our group versus the overall TEA, but I mean, the task force that has been formed and is looking and reevaluating the Excel and CTE. I think that has to tie in somehow. I'm not quite sure because I mean, several of us are on that task force, and I mean, it could have huge ramifications on what we're doing in this area as well. So I think we need to tie it in. I'm just not exactly sure how.
Absolutely.
So Cindy, just to play on that a little further, we could, and staff, we could come back with language to the full TEA with, it's kind of surrounding this, but from what I'm hearing you say is maybe we need to have a focus of state funding on high wage, high demand, including those new clusters. I know the Department of Labor came out with their new methodology. We just received it yesterday, I believe, and we're going to have them also present at the TEA. So they will have high wage, high demand, and I want to say emerging demand, which is actually new. So that might be something we need to consider just overall with our programming.
I think so. I mean, obviously, that we haven't got there yet, but that's going to be a huge piece of the task force. And I think there's a lot of questions in this area that we're getting, as well we should, on the whole program. And I think that, we do need to relook at that and determine and make sure. And again, maybe there's a cutoff. It just depends on what that data looks like and how much money there's going to be. So I think that's going to be a big effort, both in the task force and our whole alignment of what we're doing.
Absolutely. Terrific. Anything else? We can always jump in. So what we had provided before, last spring, we did a quick status update of all the goals that we had set last fall. We had a couple of goals that we thought might warrant continued look in this next year. So that's the first portion of your issue paper, is just exactly kind of what we discussed last spring. The first one is essentially to look at opportunities to diversify the funding base for adult education. And bear in mind, these are discussion items to just kind of get our juices flowing. It might spur a completely different idea. It might be something that we say, this, just as it's written, we think it ought to go forward and be a goal again, or perhaps there's some tweak in it to better serve us in the future. So that first one is about funding for adult ed, making sure that we can expand and sustain all of those services. We know that that's a key area for our state. We also had that goal to look at Excel and CTE fees for those high school students. We had the task group meet. We did make some tweaks to how that will be reported. So we had just made the comment that perhaps there was something along those lines that would still be useful as a goal for the TEA. That improved collaboration, working between the technical and community colleges with the adult ed centers and making sure that that's seamless, and we're working through those educational pathways and communication. And then the fourth one that, like I said, from last year that we thought may still have some bearing was the one that we had actually put on hold, looking to report participation and emphasize business and industry partnerships and that customized training that is occurring at the community and technical colleges and universities. The universities have actually kind of worked on this a little bit separately, and it really became more about reporting credentials. Think industry recognized certifications in what we look at, and also the ideas about reporting micro credentials. And when we had discussed that originally, it was going to be a pretty significant lift, both on KBOR staff and on the community and technical colleges to try to work on that reporting. So those four were ones that we as staff would just kind of throw into the ring for discussion, because the rest of those goals that we had last year, we felt like we kind of got to a point where they were part of our standard operating procedure. And so we didn't really have, I mean, we're always going to work on it. It doesn't mean that it's not important. It's just not necessarily a goal to create, develop, or work on. Any thoughts on those four?
No, but in listening to you, did the goal I brought up fall into your standard operating procedure, something that we traditionally have worked on anyway?
The cluster changes?
Mhm.
I don't, I got to tell you, Natalie, I'm not so sure that I have been around for something like that. Now, I would hope that that would have always been pretty much standard operating procedure, but with the new clusters and the way that they're mapped is very different than what it's been before. So,
And we just adopted the national model exactly, except for Arts AV that didn't have any labor data since we're required to report them that way.
but I do think to the point that I think that you're making, not to put words in your mouth, but I do think that that would be something that whether it's now or whether it's after we work through this cluster change, that it does become standard operating procedure if it, depending on how often we go through something like that.
Been 2 decades, so maybe it won't be for a while, but anyway, maybe we've had you all in the loop and
Yes. It's kind of hard to operationalize something that happens that infrequently,
Mhm.
but I think that the idea that it will be something that we partner and collaborate and especially calibrate to make sure that all the way through the process we're all talking about the exact same thing. I think we could easily agree that that should be standard procedure.
Sharman, I wanted to let you know that Committee Chair Bean has joined.
Fantastic. I did not see him.
It's hiding.
Well, Mike, we've
Mike.
decided that you're doing everything. So you can probably adjourn and
Today is the day I feel like that. So
we just got started in our discussion and I'm not exactly sure when you joined, but we did go ahead and hold off on the minutes review until you could be with us.
okay. I heard bits and pieces as I joined.
So the number 2 on here, the Excel and CTE fees, you were saying that one was done, right? Or no? Was it?
Well, we formed that task force. We made some modifications to how that data is being submitted by the institutions, and that is something that the TEA will have to review. It's ongoing. The specific goal that was originally introduced was about sharing best practices in reducing or eliminating those fees. What we worked on this time with the task group was, like I said, more standardization in the reporting itself. This may be a situation that, to your point about the current task group, looking at Excel and CTE as a program overall, that the fees may be an element of that.
That's kind of what I was going to ask is, can we close this one, and then if we create kind of I'll say a generic one that kind of encompasses this task force, that seems to be popping out as a question. I think we hit the low hanging fruit in our our first meeting, and the rest is going to be a little bit more challenging, but specifically, trying to get to, the programs that really are high, the high wage, high demand jobs. I think that is going to be the bulk of the work, but this could be like a subset of that as well. And why everybody has different fees, and maybe for this specific program, I know the colleges all want to do their own thing, and I get that. but maybe for this specific program, because it is state funded, maybe we do have to standardize or just the colleges cover it. You know, that could be another option. I think some are already doing that. So anyway, there's definitely work to do there, but not in this area that we were going down. I don't.
As a result of the task force meetings that we had, I think we found that there were probably a lot of inconsistent reporting. You know, so this year I'm anxious to see the data. I feel like with what we did in that task force and the training the board staff will do with institutions, I would hope that we're getting more consistent data
So
and have that nailed down. So the people are charging the same or different or same kind of things. You know, I think last year it brought up, you know, if a student destroys a book, well, that's really not part of CTE. That's part of your disciplinary process at your institution. So you don't put that fee down as the maximum. And I think we emphasized putting actual fees down and not the maximum, if I remember right. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that data. And then maybe after that, there's some goals that we can establish with that. But I'm anxious for this first year data to take a look at that.
Absolutely. Any thoughts on the other three? And I'm also happy to share, so several of us staff as well as Chair Rice and Member Frederick were on the discussion this morning, but I would prefer to wait to tell you how that sort of went so as not to skew your feelings on what you would want to recommend.
So Sharman, are you asking for general recommendations or recommendations to these proposed goals?
It can be either, honestly, because these four goals, and now we've kind of taken that second one that was about Excel and CTE fees, and I think it sounds like one of the recommendations might be to look at Excel and CTE as a program and the work that the current task group is doing, establishing maybe some ways to look at the success of the program, some metrics, some parameters and guide rails, and so kind of folding the fees maybe into that. These were presented mostly as a starting point for discussion to just say, these are some areas that we worked on last year. And these first four goals that we put into the issue paper were ones that we as staff thought there may be some need to carry them forward, or they might spark a different idea or what have you. So either way, either generic or a recommendation on one of these that you see.
I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed that, you know, thinking about the board's military initiative that's kind of feathered away, that Kansas was a best practice and, you know, credit for prior learning. And now we're just one of many states doing it. I'd certainly like to add that as a fifth goal, that we kick that up again and explore, you know, branching out is probably not the right word, but kind of dig into that more. In my conversations with Army University over the past couple months, working on some other projects, they want to continue to be engaged in it.
Okay. Absolutely.
And for us, one of our big initiatives is keeping the military talent here in Kansas. And if we're not doing these extra things, kind of diminish our chances at keeping folks.
I think
Right.
that's a good one, Mike. keeping that talent there. And I don't know what the goal exactly would be, but I think looking at CTE, Excel and CTE, obviously we're going to be questioned about that, or there may be other in the next year for funding purposes and all. And whether we look at the high wage, high demand focus or the areas we want to focus on, I think that will be pretty critical. So that if we're looking at what do we get the most bang for the buck with our dollars at the state level, and what do we most need, and maybe we're not hitting areas that we need. So I think embedding that in somewhat what we talk about is probably pretty important.
I mean, really, you could just copy what was last year's goal.
Juan.
It was enhance military articulation and support efforts.
Yep.
Just happen to have that pulled up.
And maybe there's work being done now that I'm just not aware of, but.
Well, and there is, and I think that this might also open up the opportunity. So some of those things that we worked on last year to try to standardize a little bit more, maybe what we also need to do is do a quick revisit of those goals in terms of what new update does the TEA need from us on what those processes are, and what are the metrics, what can we tell, what's happened to do that follow-up as well.
What is going on related to that?
Chair Bean, this is Director Brown. I wanted to, and I apologize, we should do a formal update sometime soon on this work. We're actually working closely with the Credit for Prior Learning Task Force, that is an active group in our state, and we've brought the military articulation and the credit hours to the task force. Right now, we're doing a data analysis, understanding how much our articulation system is being used, how many credit hours are being actually shown on transcripts for students. We found out that the way the credit is transcripted is not always reflected in the data the way we think that it should be. So there's a lot of background work going on. We have not really reached a consensus or gotten an answer from every institution on understanding how this process actually happens. So if I may, I would like, if you would like to that goal to be a TEA goal, if we could maybe rephrase the goal to go from enhancing military articulation, maybe, and I will be happy to think and provide kind of not the top of my head, but I wonder if we can have some more specific language of what the TEA would like to see us do. Our goal has been to take the efforts and the great articulation portal that we have and make it work for students. So we've been working in the background a lot, understanding how does an institution go from having all these articulations and how the students end up with the credits on their transcript. So if we could maybe build some of that more specificity into the goal and get it, but I say, give us a little bit of more of a direction of what you would like to see in the end, we would be happy to work towards that.
Yeah, we can talk offline, but I think the basic premise of what we have going now deals with, I'll have the wrong term, so I apologize, but, kind of entry-level military folks, I think there's an opportunity to expand. I met with a group of officers at Fort Leavenworth about a month ago and brought this up to them. Bits and pieces apply, but it really doesn't apply to their current classification in the military. So
we would love some.
I think we've gotten the low-hanging fruit, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yes, we would love to work with you. If you have any insight or any suggestions or any connections that we can make, we would love to continue this work. Um, Absolutely. We've been really focusing on data and transcripts at this point, but if there are other facets that we're not working on, we would be so happy to get your advice on this, and we can set something up pretty soon to talk
Yeah.
about.
I mean, enhance is subjective, the term. Maybe the proper term is to expand.
I think so. Thank you.
Well, and Chair Bean, I would say even refine. So what we have seen, and the data doesn't reflect the work that we know is happening. So there's a disconnect in the articulation work that we have done and it actually ending up on transcripts to be able to even report it. So wanting to look at that data and be able to go, where do we go next? We need to fix what's broken right now before we expand. So there's quite a bit of cleanup that we need to do.
I wonder, not just change it, but on that goal 1 with the adult ed, and maybe we do this, I just don't remember. Are we tracking the number of the graduates or not with the adult ed programs that graduate that either go on to school or enter the workforce if they weren't in the workforce? Or some measure of success. If we want to be asking for money, you need to show how it's being successful and what a difference it makes. And so that first goal, it's great to look for opportunities to diversify the funding base, but we probably need to look at why it's important that we explore opportunities to diversify the funding base. Because it's hard to get money unless you can show results and differences that are made.
Absolutely. And I know that Director Martinez is also on and may want to offer some elaboration. Hector?
Yeah, then we are going to be preparing different infographics on how do we impact the communities around and for the whole this on this in this comments, Member Mikulka. Then we want to quantify and see the return on investment on adult education. And not only on the community impact and the economic impact of adult education services, but also those that are continue into post-secondary education, those that enter employment. And also one of the important parts, last week we heard the number of workers need in the state are in the age between 24 to 36, and there's the majority of adult learners in our centers. Then we need to concentrate our efforts in how do we quantify and demonstrate effectiveness on adult education services in correlation with the technical education, and how many credentials are we providing.
Okay, good. So that, I mean, it sounds like you're moving where we need it to move. Do we need to make the wording or change the wording or that goal a bit to reflect moving on for explore opportunities?
Definitely, I believe that we need to expand that and those opportunities, and also we like to work directly with local programs on identified local resources that may be granted not necessarily from the state directly. That we're going to be looking in some other areas on where we can secure some funding for local programs, but we're gonna provide some technical assistance to local programs to secure some funding locally for continue their services as well. in correlation and in conjunction with their institutions, the sponsor institutions.
And maybe we need to talk with Department of Labor and Commerce and say, hey, we have these people, we're being very successful with what we're doing. How does that work into the workforce model that you see? How do we translate the results we have into impact on the workforce?
Yes, we will continue to work with our other titles from the We Are Title I and Title III and Title IV to make sure that we align and continue the fulfill the state plan as we write it. And we're going to be updating our state plan, and I think that is going to be an opportunity for us to have more collaboration on those issues.
Good.
Great. And I would just offer up too, so the way that we're kind of talking about that, it sounds like we almost might look at those two previous goals and kind of do some consolidating. And then what we're kind of envisioning, and I don't want to put words in Vice President White's mouth, but we would get together as staff and kind of draft up what we've heard today from everyone, put it together so that the full TEA can look through that. On those. And I would just also offer up, and you can see there at the bottom of page 5, it's also been standard procedure for the TEA to, of course, adopt the board goals that are applicable. This year, one of the goals is for the board staff to lead a structured review and update of the building future strategic plan. The Academic Affairs Standing Committee plans to look at a comprehensive review of tenure, post-tenure, and instructional workload policies. That's probably not something that we would necessarily engage in necessarily, or maybe we would. They're also working on the discussion on the 3-year baccalaureate degree model and looking at establishing some policy and looking at all aspects of that. And we put the status on there. We are already as a team here working also with academic affairs in those conversations to offer up some suggestions and work through that with them. And then the 4th goal that the board has this year is for the universities to submit their reports on their work on artificial intelligence, which is definitely something that, you know, we see coming down the pike for everyone. They also indicated that they, of course, have continuous goals that they're bringing forward. Early college initiatives and the strategic plan dashboard, success playbooks being utilized, those open education resources being adopted wherever possible. And then, like we did briefly discuss, the development and reporting of those industry recognized alternative credentials is what they're looking at. And just for the sake of further discussion, we also gave you some reference information about the building a future pillars, the items that are included under the goals to serve our Kansas families, support Kansas businesses, and then to grow the Kansas economy, because some of those things we thought may also spur some ideas about potential goals to bring forward. We have a few here that we would already be writing up to bring forward to the TEA, and we can always take additional suggestions, you know, after we meet today. If something strikes you and you're looking at it, and you're like, here's what I think this would be a good goal. We also wanted to provide an opportunity. I know that we have President Knutson and President Nichols on the line. And Amber, would you have anything that the community colleges might want to offer up as suggestions?
Thank you, Sharman. This is President Connection at Cloud, and I was also part of the meeting this morning and won't share really a lot of that discussion. But as well, Member Hoover spoke a little bit about the task force, the Excel and CTE task force, and I think that we're going to do some really incredible work there and trying to really make sure that we're able to celebrate and also translate the success of Excel and CTE. And so I think a part of that, with some of the recommendations we'll bring to the full TEA. We had a really good first meeting, but I think a part of that is just making sure that we really know what that success looks like, and making sure that when we do go, and we have kind of have the snapshot for success on the Excel and CTE page at KBOR, and making sure that, you know, we keep that updated and we're very clear on what those success measures are, so that when we are talking to legislators, we're able to really praise the success of the program, and making sure that we make some tweaks in how we can make sure that those credentials are being attained, and that we're all kind of saying the same thing as well. And so I look forward to the work of that task force. And so I do appreciate the recommendation to include that as part of the goal. And so that really is all I have to offer, but I really appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Absolutely. Dr. Greg?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. So we took the advice of the committee this morning. We're going to issue a letter to the TEA at your request, kind of outlining our proposed TEA goals that we think will help the state system and focus on the mission of TEA. So I would encourage you to look forward to that coming. Should be out today.
Okay. So we
Did
Go ahead.
Greg just say that we're looking at the mission of the TEA, and that's what the letter's going to be?
Let me clarify, please. We requested the TEA subcommittee this morning consider a goal. The feedback I got was that's something that they weren't going to look at this morning, that we should propose it to the TEA. My letter, or on behalf of KTC, will go through our process of why we want to request a particular goal. We've included our proposed goals for TEA, but I think it's better that you kind of see it in writing, so that you're not kind of unaware of what's going on. So I certainly will send that out to any individuals that want to see it, but it is a process that I think you'll have plenty of time to kind of get your hands on it and take a look before you make a decision on what you want your goals to be. But we're trying to align with your mission and visions as the Technical Education Authority for Kansas.
Thank you.
All right, and I would just share too the discussion this morning. We spoke mostly about those first 4 goals and kind of bringing those forward. Ultimately, the Budget and Finance Committee, we're looking at those first 3 goals that we previously had as well, the board goals, and then that recommendation on that 4th goal that we previously had kind of put on hold about the reporting for business and industry, customized training, the credentials and so forth, that as much as a recommendation for a goal to remain on hold until future looks. We want to, perhaps it might be useful to think about some very specific goals of what we want to accomplish, and then perhaps some things like that we don't want to fall off the radar. We're not ready to necessarily work on, but we know we may need to address in the future, and they may become a priority later on. Having a to-do list that is a future when the time is right isn't a bad way to go about it. It might be a way to think about that as well.
This is Dave. We discussed this morning, like goal number 4, business intelligence training. That's a huge animal to get your hands on. But I think it would be a real feather in our cap if we could ever be able to report those numbers. And I'm not suggesting that for next year, but I'm just wondering, is there a way to make a step? I mean, get feedback from the institutions this year on that, and board staff. How is it possible to report that and be consistent? And I think it's a big bite to chew, and I think you got plenty to do anyway. But it would be great if we can make maybe a little baby step on that goal as far as what it would take. And I know the numbers. I mean, we learned this morning Johnson County's got 25,000 BNI, not credit BNI students. So it's a huge thing. But I think it would be great if the public knew that and the legislators knew that. And I'm not sure that they do. I mean, they're aware of it, but I'm not sure they know the numbers. They see the credit data and how much it costs them, but it'd be good for them to know what the institutions are doing on their own, and the state's not reimbursing it.
I think that's a very valid point, Dave. I mean, a tough nut to crack regardless. Also, a piece of that could be tracking registered apprenticeship numbers or apprentices per college.
Absolutely. So I would offer up in that vein, we did get some feedback from the colleges last year. So what we could I think pretty easily do is kind of revisit that with them to say, here's what the thoughts were, here's what some of the questions were, and here's what the feedback was from you all. It would be a tremendous lift, not only for KBOR as far as a data collection, because if you want KBOR to report on it, it's got to be a data collection. So it is a tremendous lift there. And it would be also, from the feedback that I recall, it would be a pretty significant lift on the part of the technical and community colleges based on their current structures and so on and so forth. But we could kind of tee that back up with what we found out last year, see what's
I think it's too big a thing to do this year, but I think it would be good to know, is it feasible? And what would it take to do it if we were going to do it? That kind of thing.
What are the challenges, kind of just get a snapshot in time. Here's where we stand right now. Here's kind of what that lay of the land looks like. Not so much a goal, but just kind of an update, I guess, maybe. Sort of like the military piece. Yeah, we can do an update on that pretty easily, I think. Okay. Well, I think that we have some things to kind of put together to bring back to the TEA to have you all look at. Chair Bean, I would turn it back to you if we want to look at minutes, and I would certainly not close anything out. I would just say that if anybody thinks of something, shoot an email or let us know so we can get it all on the table.
Just for context, Charmin, our next steps are to discuss this at the next full meeting. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, thanks, and apologize for my absence. We are between buildings right now, so half of us are here and half of us are over there. So running back and forth, there's not much time between meetings. So I apologize for my tardiness. Kind of jump back up to the agenda to the August 7th minutes, or August 7th committee meeting minutes. Any additions or corrections to those items? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the August 7th committee meeting minutes.
Don't move.
Thank you, Ray. We have a second?
Second, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy. anyone disagree with that? Perfect. We'll consider them approved. I think the only other thing is a reminder of our next committee meeting on November 6th. And Charmin, when is it our next full board meeting or full authority meeting?
The authority meeting is on Thursday, the 23rd.
All right. Getting pretty close to Halloween, so wear your costumes, Ray.
Yeah.
Any other items for the committee? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Moved.
Thanks, Ray.
Second.
All right. Unless anybody objects, we'll consider the meeting adjourned. Thanks, everyone, for jumping on.
Thanks.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.